Okay, all right. No, it intimidates me when I see somebody with sunglasses in the front row. That's all.
Make you nervous?
Yeah, it does. I'm paranoid by nature. All right. Good afternoon. We're going to start with my favorite story today. Our colleagues at UNESCO say the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage met today in Mauritius and added 6 new elements to the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The list aims to increase the visibility and traditions of know-how of communities without recognizing standards of excellence or exclusivity. New additions to the list include Chidaoba, an ancient form of Georgian wrestling, hurling, which is an Irish field sport, Raiho Shin from Japan, which involves ritual visits of deities in masks and costumes, the spring festive rites of horse breeders, Summer, a form of Jordanian song and dance usually performed at weddings, and reggae, which means that everything's going to be all right. Sorry, been working on that all morning. Anyway, speaking of everything being all right, the Secretary General arrived safely in Buenos Aires this morning to attend the Group of 20 Summit, the G20. This evening, he'll be having a press conference, press encounter in Buenos Aires and meet the UN country team. We'll provide a transcript of his remarks as soon as we get them. And tomorrow he will address the G20 at a session entitled Putting People First, Global Economy, the Future of Work and Women's Empowerment, where he will call on G20 leaders to ensure that all their citizens enjoy the benefits of technological and scientific advances, global trade, and economic integration. And he will continue to have meetings and participate in the discussions on Saturday. And as he told you, he will then go off to the COP meeting, the opening of the COP meeting in Poland. And today, the Secretary General is announcing the launch of a global task force charged with recommending strategies to harness the potential financial technology to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. The task force on digital financing consists of leaders from a range of sectors, from both developed and developing countries, and is co-chaired by Maria Ramos, the Chief Executive Officer of South Africa's APSA Group, and Akim Steiner, the Administrator of the UN Development Program. In a press release, the Secretary General notes that we have already seen how technology has helped expand financial inclusion, itself an important goal, with 1.2 billion people in just 6 years. However, he said we've only just begun to tap the potential of digital finance and investment to meet the broader agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Change Agreement. The Task Force on Digital Finance will meet in Davos in January and is expected to present its preliminary report of recommendations to the Secretary General in September. And we have a statement on Madagascar. The Secretary General takes notes of yesterday's announcement of the final results of the first round of the presidential elections held in Madagascar on November 7th. He commends the people of Madagascar for having peacefully expressed their constitutional right to vote, as well as the Malagasy institutions, in particular the National Independent Electoral Commission, as well as the High Constitutional Court, for their leadership and professionalism throughout the electoral process. He also welcomes the role of the Malagasy government in ensuring an environment conducive to the holding of elections. The Secretary General will continue to follow next steps of the electoral process through his special advisor, Mr. Batili, who is working in close coordination with the African Union, the Southern African Development Community Special Envoys, and the UN through the country team will continue to support the people of Madagascar in consolidation of democracy and sustainable development. He appeals to all stakeholders to exercise restraint in the lead-up to the runoff elections on 19th of December and remains confident of any potential disputes related to the electoral process will be addressed peacefully through appropriate legal channels. The Special Envoy for Syria, Stéphane de Mistura, appreciates the work done by the Astana meeting by the 3 guarantors, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Russian Federation, and the Republic of Turkey, to ensure that the Idlib de-escalation arrangements are sustained. However, Mr. de Mistura deeply regrets that a special meeting in Astana with the 3 Sochi co-conveners there was no tangible progress in overcoming a 10-month stalemate on the composition of the Constitutional Committee. This was the last occasion of an Astana meeting this year and has sadly for the Syrian people been a missed opportunity to accelerate the establishment of a credible, balanced and inclusive Syrian-owned, Syrian-led and UN-facilitated Constitutional Committee. The Special Envoy will continue to pursue any avenue that can overcome the obstacles for the establishment of such a Constitutional Committee prior to the target date of December 31st of this year. The Special Envoy has continued to keep Secretary General closely updated and intends to report to the Security Council in December. Speaking of the Security Council, Rina Gilani, the Director of Advocacy and Operations for the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, briefed council members on Syria this morning. She said that in the northwest part of the country, there have been reports of mortars, including some shells reportedly contain chlorine gas, hitting 3 densely populated neighborhoods in western Aleppo. People with respiratory symptoms were rushed to 2 main hospitals. The WHO has provided support to both hospitals and stands ready to provide further public health as required. She noted that the Secretary General has repeatedly stressed that any confirmed use of chemical weapons is abhorrent and a clear and egregious violation of international law. She said that OCHA has also received reports of airstrikes in Idlib Governorate on the 24th and 25th, the first strikes in more than 2 months. She added that some 4.3 million people in need live in areas outside of the control of the government. That accounts for more than 1/3 of all people in need of assistance in Syria. It includes almost 3 million people in need in areas exclusively reached through cross-border operations. Full text was made available to you. And Mark Lowcock, the UN's humanitarian chief, arrived in Yemen today for a 3-day visit. He's in Sana'a, where he expressed his concern about the humanitarian situation, which has deteriorated since the last time he visited the country in October. He reiterated the key 5 requests he'd asked the Security Council on November 16th to address the suffering of the people. Mr. Lowcock is scheduled to meet authorities in Sana'a and Aden, affected people, including displaced families, humanitarian colleagues, and other stakeholders. And on Iraq, the UN Population Fund today condemned what it called a cowardly attack by 4 gunmen using heavy weaponry on the office of the Director to Combat Violence Against Women in Sulaymaniyah in the Kurdistan region. No casualties were reported, but UNFPA said offices supporting women should be safe havens where they can find refuge from violence and abuse. And our colleagues at UNICEF said they are deeply concerned for the safety and well-being of more than 1,000 migrant children moving through Mexico, awaiting at the border town of Tijuana for their asylum claims to be heard by immigration authorities in the U.S. UNICEF says these children have limited access to many of the essential services they need, including nutrition, education, psychosocial support, and health care. They're also at risk of exploitation and trafficking. In a statement, UNICEF stressed that a child is first a child and foremost, regardless of their migration status, and urged all governments to guarantee that uprooted children have access to asylum procedures in a timely fashion, no matter how they enter the country. The agency stands ready to work with all governments in the region to ensure that children's rights are respected and upheld, and that uprooted children receive support. And the UN Organization for Migration and the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center have launched a partnership to enhance efforts to provide solutions to the tens of millions of people displaced within their own countries by conflict and disaster. More information online. And today we mark for the first time the International Jaguar Day to boost conservation efforts to guarantee the survival of the largest feline in the Americas. Half of the original range of the species has been lost, and its population is declining due to poaching, conflict with humans, and disintegration of their habitat. While some countries have already witnessed the complete extinction of the jaguar, 14 of the 18 jaguar countries in Latin America have come together in unprecedented global commitment to save the jaguar, with help from the UNDP, the World Wildlife Fund, the Wildlife Conservation Society, and the Pantera Foundation. And I have been asked earlier today about recent press reports regarding the relations between Algeria and Morocco. And I can say that we've always been very supportive of increased dialogue between Algeria and Morocco, whose relationship is very important to the region. And Burundi paid its budget dues in full for 2018. So we say thank you, which leaves us with 44. And at 4 p.m., there'll be a press briefing by the outgoing President of the Security Council for the month of November, Ambassador Ma of the People's Republic of China. Carol.
Stéphane, can you confirm that the Secretary General has set up a meeting with the Crown Prince on the sidelines of the G20? And can you update us on Yemen?
No, there's no update on Yemen besides what the Secretary General said to you yesterday. At this point, I know the discussions led by Mr. Griffiths are still going on. I don't have a finalized list of the bilaterals for the Secretary General as of yet, but I would refer you to what he clearly said yesterday in his stakeout. Linda.
Thank you, Steph. I was wondering if you are aware of a letter that the Israelis say was sent to the president of the GA, in essence asking UN members to help thwart U.S. efforts to condemn Hamas at the UN. I was just wondering, if you don't know about it being sent to the PGA, I was wondering perhaps if such a letter was sent to the SG.
I have not seen it, but maybe Monica can answer. But I'll check for our part. Yes, go ahead.
Stéphane, does the Secretary General or do you have any comment on Brazil withdrawing their offer to host COP25? I guess President-elect Bolsonaro made this announcement yesterday. And does SG fear that there is an attitude towards climate change that it seems to be spreading?
We've seen we've seen those reports. Obviously, it will be up to the Latin American group to decide who will then host the COP, as is done by regional rotation. And I think we very much look forward to engaging with the incoming administration in Brazil on a number of issues, including, of course, climate change. Betul.
Thank you, Stéphane. On the Astana meeting, you read out the statement already, but the special envoy is saying that described the meeting in Astana as a missed opportunity. Does the SG have anything to say about that? Because it was he's leaving in about a month, and it describes it as a missed opportunity to establish the Constitutional Committee. And what does the SG have to say about that?
No, Secretary General shares the sentiments of his special envoy as this being a missed opportunity. I think what is important to note, Mr. de Mistura is leaving, as we all know, but the office itself is not leaving. Geir Peterson will take over. There will not be a break. There'll be a handover. The work will continue seamlessly. But this is there had been a target date of December 31st for the establishment of the Constitutional Committee. This was an opportunity to move forward. This did not move forward, and we're obviously disappointed. Masoud.
Thank you, Stéphane. When the Secretary General visits Argentina, will he at any point in time raise the issue of the migrants suffering at the United States border, and that issue with the international community, because they need help, which is not forthcoming?
The Secretary General will raise the issue as appropriate, depending on who he will be meeting in his bilaterals, and it may very well come up in a more broader discussion. His position on it, I think, has been very clear and articulated both by himself and by his representative, Ms. Arbor.
On the issue of, I just wanted to raise one more question. On the issue of Palestinian solidarity, that the Secretary General issued a statement yesterday, but he seems to have fleetingly mentioned the settlement activity in the occupied territories. Why is that? Why is he not emphasizing that enough to create an atmosphere for the so-called?
I think fleetingly is a matter of judgment. The Secretary General's position on the issue of settlements has been clearly stated over and over again and has not changed.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the Port of Hodeidah and its role in the negotiations with Martin Griffiths. Is that still the possibility of the UN controlling that port? Is that still on the table? And if so, who would be in charge of that? Thanks.
Indeed, that is some option we are obviously actively looking at, and our humanitarian colleagues would be in charge. But I'm trying to get a bit more detail on that as well. Sorry, a bit too on that, Evelyn.
Just a clarification. You said we're obviously disappointed. Is the UN disappointed with the meeting in Astana?
No. What the UN, what the special envoy said is that he appreciated the work that was being done in Astana on Idlib, but he was disappointed, and he feels that it was a missed opportunity. The side meeting he had on the acceleration of the establishment of a constitutional committee. So it's two separate things, and thank you for letting me clarify. Evelyn.
Thank you, Steph. You read out every day who has paid their dues or their obligations to the UN. Do you have handy what percentage is that of what's expected?
That's a very
50,
good question. That could be calculated, but not off the top of my head. A little too much reggae music.
Thank you.
Yes, Masood.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to raise this issue about that today the Norwegian Refugee Council raised a statement saying that in Yemen, people are being killed systematically by the so-called coalition, and that they're being starved. What I'm trying to ask is this: at what point in time can you say that the Secretary General has urgently asked the Saudis and the coalition to stop this attacks at all?
Masood, he's been saying it for months. We've all been saying it for months.
But this
we've been pushing for that politically in talks. I don't think we or our humanitarian colleagues could be any clearer in the kind of messages they have brought back from Yemen in terms of the unspeakable suffering of the Yemeni people and what is a man-made crisis.
Thanks, Stéphane. Regarding Astana, what's the situation for the refugees around Syria, like Turkey and Lebanon and Jordan? What's going to happen with that deal?
We know some of them have taken the decision to go back, but what is important is that refugees they are the ones to choose when to go back. No one should be forced to go. No one should be forced to go home. Thank you.
Thank you very much.